A man is about to be killed, not by an enemy tribe, not by a predator, by his own people. The people who shared food with him, who sheltered with him, who knew his children's names. And the terrifying part, they were completely justified. What he did and what they did about it reveals something about human nature that no history class ever taught you. Before we had courts, before we had laws, before we had any of the systems we now trust to decide who is guilty and who goes free, justice already existed. And in some ways, it was more sophisticated than anything we've built since. Here's what nobody tells you about ancient humans. We picture them as chaotic, impulsive, ruled by brute force and raw power. The strongest man takes what he wants. Everyone else survives or doesn't. That image is not just incomplete, it is completely, catastrophically wrong. And the proof comes from one of the most counterintuitive discoveries in the entire history of anthropology. Anthropologist Christopher Boehm spent decades studying hunter-gatherer societies across the world. What he found shattered the assumption that early humans lived under the rule of the strongest. He called it a reverse dominance hierarchy. In every other primate group we've observed, chimpanzees, gorillas, baboons, dominant individuals control the group. But in human hunter-gatherer bands, the opposite was true. The group controlled dominant individuals, actively, deliberately. The moment someone began accumulating too much power, too much food, too much influence, the community moved against them, together, every time. Not because they were told to, because they understood instinctively that one person's dominance was everyone else's slow death. This wasn't an accident of culture. This was a system. And once you see how it worked, you'll never look at a courtroom the same way again. 50,000 years ago, you live in a group of roughly 30 people. Not 30 strangers, 30 people you have known your entire life. You were born in front of these people. You watched their parents die. You know who snores, who cheats at games, who cried the night the last big hunt failed. There is no concept of privacy. There is no escape into anonymity. Every single thing you do is witnessed, remembered, and discussed. Your reputation is not a social nicety. It is oxygen. Lose it, and you stop breathing. Now imagine someone in that group starts taking more than their share. Maybe it starts small, an extra cut of meat here, a borrowed tool that never comes back. Nobody says anything yet, but everybody notices. And this is where something ancient and precise clicks into motion. The first response is gossip. And before you dismiss that as trivial, understand what gossip actually is in this context. It is a distributed intelligence network. Information about that person's behavior spreads across every member of the group within hours. Patterns get identified. A shared verdict begins to form. Not announced, not declared, just quietly assembled in the minds of every person whose cooperation that individual depends on to survive. Boehm's research showed this wasn't passive or accidental. It was the community's first deliberate tool of social enforcement. Opportunities start closing. Invitations stop coming. The temperature around that person drops by 1 degree, then another. Most people, feeling that shift, course correct immediately. The system works without a single confrontation. But what if they don't stop? Then the group moves to something that sounds almost absurd until you feel the full weight of it. Public ridicule. Targeted, deliberate, communal mockery. Not behind their back, to their face, in front of everyone. Here is the detail that stopped researchers cold when they first documented it. This same mechanism appeared independently across indigenous cultures on every inhabited continent. Groups that had never made contact with each other developed the identical tool. Boehm documented what he called leveling mechanisms, community behaviors specifically designed to prevent any individual from rising above the group. Successful hunters were openly mocked after a big kill, called arrogant before they'd said a word, because pride in these societies was not a personality flaw. It was an early warning system, the first sign that someone was beginning to place their own needs above the group's survival. And the community extinguished it immediately, every time, without exception. Most people broke at this stage, reformed, rejoined, carried the memory of it like a scar that kept them honest. But some people didn't break. For those people, the group escalated to something with no modern equivalent that truly captures its brutality. Ostracism. Not the social media version, not unfollowing someone. Imagine being removed from the only 30 people on your personal planet. You cannot hunt large game alone. You cannot survive a fever with no one to bring water. You cannot defend yourself in the dark from things that hunt in packs. Exclusion in the ancient world was not embarrassing. It was a delayed death sentence. Some who faced it came back changed, quieter, more careful, reintegrated with the fragile trust of people watching them closely forever after. Others simply vanished. The wilderness took them. And then there were the ones who came back anyway, who continued, who remained dangerous no matter what the community tried. For those individuals, there was a final stage, execution. But this is the part that should genuinely stop you cold. Because it wasn't carried out by a chief. There was no chief. It wasn't ordered by an authority. There was no authority. Boehm documented this pattern repeatedly across cultures. The decision made collectively. The act distributed among multiple members so that no single person bore the full moral weight. Deliberate, reluctant, preceded by every possible attempt at correction. What Boehm's research revealed was not a primitive fumbling toward justice. It was a fully realized system, built on a principle our modern courts still struggle to consistently apply. Graduated escalation. Start with the minimum necessary response. Move to the next level only when the previous one fails. Keep the door open for reform at every stage. Prioritize restoring cooperation over delivering punishment. These people weren't doing this because they were enlightened. They were doing it because a group that destroyed its members over minor offenses collapsed, and a group that tolerated genuine threats collapsed faster. Then agriculture arrived, then cities, then thousands of strangers living side by side with no shared history, no reputation network, no gossip that could reach everyone who mattered. The old system broke under the weight of scale. Written laws filled the gap. Courts appeared, police, prisons, and with them, something the ancient system had carefully, almost obsessively prevented. Power concentrated in the hands of a few people deciding the fate of everyone else. We call our justice system advanced, and in some ways it is. But in the ways that mattered most, gradualism, collective responsibility, the relentless prioritization of repair over revenge, we have never quite recovered what those 30 people sitting around a fire already understood. That man who was about to be killed at the beginning of this story, he had been warned, mocked, excluded, welcomed back, and warned again. What happened to him wasn't a loss of control. It was the final, reluctant act of a community that had tried everything else first. That's not savagery, that's justice. And somewhere underneath every courtroom ever built, it still is.